Hey everybody, Wes here. Update video. I've decided to upgrade my headphone amp and EQ. Guess what? I stayed in the Schiit Audio ecosystem. We have the new Lokius, the 6-band EQ, and the Jotunheim 2 headphone amp, right? So, oh, there's my pillow cube. Awesome pillow. Pillow cube is awesome. So here's my current setup. So this is my work setup right here, right? So I use that light, I use that microphone for work and for my Mac. So if we take this off, now I know it's a little dark in here, so let me turn that light on. There we go. Actually, let me get a little bit brighter here. There we go. That's a whole lot better. All right. So here's my current situation. Magnificent Heresy headphone amp, Lokius 6. But this is the way it actually runs. It comes out of my Mac into my Audio Quest Dragonfly, and that's a Audio Quest Victoria 3.5 going into RCA in, and then Audio Quest Sydney RCA out going into my headphone amp. I also have Audio Quest's Big Sur going to my Bose stereo, my Bose computer speakers there. So that's my current setup, and I do have a Panamax 4300 EX with that. Every now and then I do bring out the Modius, because the Modius is on my surround sound system. But I do bring that in, and I do run both. I mean, the main reason why I'm using the Cobalt is for Tidal and for Apple Music. So when I do switch, when I do switch, when I do use the Modius, I'm using that for my iTunes playlists. So all my CDs and stuff like that, I use that for that. But mainly that stays out in my system. The next thing on the list, hopefully within the next month or two, will be the Schiit Audio Bifrost. And then I'm just going to permanently run the Bifrost off of this. But actually, since the Jotunheim has RCA ins, but also it also has RCA ins, so I could still have my Dragonfly, my Audio Quest Dragonfly. So I'll still keep that on there for Tidal, so I can get the MQA stuff with that. But for the most part, I would be using the Bifrost. So when I want to, when I'm in the mood for MQA, I can still listen to it. So that will be the whole idea. But when I do get the Bifrost, it's going to decode everything. That's the one I'm going to be using the most. When I eventually get the Bifrost, I'm going to build a new shelf system. And I've already been planning that. So let's go ahead and start unboxing this stuff. Oh, there's my dog. There's one of my dogs who has decided to tear up her pillow pads. I just have her in this just because, well, what's happening right now, I'll end up stepping on her. You can see how small she is. So here is the Jotunheim. So right off the bat, TRS good, TRRS bad. There's the owner's manual, which I still like. So let's take this out. It's kind of hard to do with one. This actually doesn't come with a wall wart. It actually has a power supply in there, and that's why it weighs about 5 or 6 pounds. So it does have a regular 3-prong cord. And I get my Schiit Audio stickers. I love stickers. So let's take this out. I bought the silver because the silver does look better. So let's take this out. Little cardboard right there. There we go. Plastic. All right. Nice venting. So oops, let me put you guys down there. All right, here is the Jotunheim. Wow, that's very smooth. I like that. I'm going to test both. I do have the XLR 4-pin connector for one set of my headphones. So I did not get that because I do plan on using the Dragonfly and the Bifrost once I get it. So what I would do is Dragonfly in, and then from the Bifrost in. There we go. And there's our switch. So most people, one of the things they don't like about Schiit Audio is the switches in the back. And the main reason why they do that, and it makes sense, it's better for the electronics if you cut the switch off at the supply chain, right where it comes in. It's better to have the on-off switch right there for the electronics. That way, one, they keep costs down by doing that because you don't have to run a bunch of traces all over the board. So it keeps costs down. This is a lot lighter than that one. This one does come with a wall wart, so that's okay. We like wall warts. There's nothing wrong with them. The power supplies are better, obviously, but there you go. Here is the Lokius 6 bands, and I don't want to. If you're going to put comments in, you need to listen to the music as it's pure. No EQ. You're full of crap because you don't do that in your personal car. I have a video coming out about my experience with audiophiles and what I really think of them. That's full of crap. One of my favorite albums is Anthrax's "Spreading the Disease." Gung Ho is probably my favorite Anthrax song. Well, that song was written back that album was recorded back in the 80s. It's not recorded very well. Very tinny, like it sounds like it's recorded in a tin can. And so with an EQ, I can make it sound better. Plus, I know what I like. There's certain sounds that I like. One of the downfalls to Tidal is that there's no EQ, and I don't like that. Again, certain recording qualities, you don't need an EQ, but that's very far, few, and in between. So there's my thing about EQs. I'll just do another video on that, but you need an EQ. If you spend all this money to listen to everything in a flat mode, you're just wasting your money. You really are. Hold on, let me put you guys down. Here is the Lokius. Ta-da! Or as my grandson would say, da. So this is the switch. So everything's going to come into here first, right? Again, so gratifying, awesome switch. So it'll come into here first. So Dragonfly, right, will come into there, and then also the Bifrost will go into there, and then the outs will go to the ends here, and then I listen from there. So let's go ahead and set this up. Okay, so I was getting a hum like I just described. I thought it was coming from my Panamax, so I moved it from there to there, and that wasn't it.
Then I thought it was the transformer from the Lokius because I had it right here. That wasn't it. So then I decided to disconnect my DAC, put in the Modius to see if I can get it, and I found the reason. It's this, the Dragonfly Cobalt. I guess because it has a preamp in there, there's some type of transformer, some power supply in there, I get a hum. And when I unplugged it, the hum immediately goes away. So now I have to rethink how I'm going to get MQA, because I pay for MQA through Tidal. Or I may just have to suck it up and just not use MQA, or just use this on my phone, because my setup was this Cobalt with these AudioQuest Victoria 3.5. Spent a lot of money on this cable, and that was after it was used. So I think I spent $150 on this one. I don't know, maybe not. So that's a bummer, because I like this cable. I like the way it sounds, especially spending $329 on that one. So but that's okay, because now I know where the hum is coming from. Everybody else will know where the hum is coming from, because what I wanted to do, because this had RCA ends and XLR ends, so I was going to do XLR for listening to Apple Music and stuff, and my music just like that. And then when I wanted to listen to MQA, I could use the Dragonfly. I guess my other option would be, I think even if I moved it down here, I think it's still going to be too loud. I still think it's going to be too loud and I won't be able to use it. Maybe I'll try that, but let's see. Okay, so the humming and hiss only comes from the cobalt blue. It does not come from the cobalt red. So if you are looking to do both, like what I'm doing with the Bifrost and the cobalt, get the MQA with the cobalt, you're not going to be able to do it with the cobalt blue. You're going to have to do it with the red, possibly the black. I didn't test the black, and that's because I have the first generation black, cobalt black. Not cobalt black, dragonfly black. So I didn't, test it with that, but I'm pretty sure it'll have the same results as the red. So even with whether it's single-ended or balanced, the RCA or the XLR, I still got the hum. Now with the balanced, it wasn't as much, with obviously because of the balance capabilities of it, with signals traveling through both sides, the left and the right, and you have the actual third prong in there. So it didn't really do it with it. It did do it with it, but it wasn't as loud, but it was still noticeable, especially when you start turning the volume up. So for some strange reason, I guess it's the preamp that's in the Cobalt Dragonfly. All right, to use the Dragonfly, I got to use RCA in to the Lokius. And then I'm going to use the balanced out to the Jotunheim. This AudioQuest Big Sur goes to my Bose computer speakers. If you're old enough to know, that is a Yokero Taco Bell dog from Godzilla. Remember the free tacos? It actually still works. Listen, I think it does. Yeah, you guys are dying laughing if you remember that commercial. So, yeah, there's my Ash, Mr. Bean, Stewie, Homer, Metallica, and then there's Michael Scott. But anyway, and then so basically, that's how I'm able to use the AudioQuest Dragonfly Red. But coming from my Mac is going to be the Carbon. Where'd it go? I'm sorry, right here. The Carbon USB B going in going in, coming out to the end of the Lokius, end of the Lokius, out into the Jotunheim. Now, I didn't get, this is just a headphone amp because, well, I have the Bifrost and I have the Audio Quest. So, let's get started. To get started, I'm using world's best cables. Let me get it. These are the 6-inch. These are the Canare, however you say it, with the Nutrek connectors, and it is the silver. So that's what I'm using to connect it. Let's see if I can prop this up. They come with the protectors on there, little plastic. You just rip it right off. It's pretty cool. It's okay. Okay, so Bifrost out to Lokius input, right? So the Bifrost is upside down, so this connector, the release will not be there, at least not on top. So it goes in, and that goes in there. Get another one. In and in. There we go. Now, I may not be able to use the 6-inch. I might. Let's see. If not, I may have to go back to, get it right? Right to right. There we go. And now we go right to right. So this is the output. On the Lokius, the connectors are right. They do this for the Bifrost because of space reasons. And no. So I should have just ordered the two, but that's okay because I have 1.5 foot. Okay. Should have just ordered the 1 foot, but that's okay. So get the right connector here, out to in, and I shouldn't have did it that way, but that is okay. And all right, so just so you see, and I always use dust covers. I'm not using those for noise, cancellation or noise stoppers. I just don't want dust all up in there. I mean, as you can see, the Jotunheim is going to have a whole bunch of holes in it, so dust is going to get in there, but I just like keeping my connectors blocked off so nothing gets in there like a bug or something and shorts everything out. So there it is. Now I could probably send them back and get the 1 foot, but I'll keep them. It's another extra 6 inches, right? That's what she said. That's what she said. All right. Okay, so upgrading from the Heresy to the Jotunheim is huge. It is basically the equivalent from taking your car and putting a turbo on it. It just boosts it that much. It really does. And I'm not talking about one of those small Mickey Mouse turbos. I'm talking about a huge 104 millimeter turbo. That's what I'm talking about. Now, the main reason why I upgraded, let me preface this. Single-ended, but no balanced outputs. And the reason why I did that was because I ended up buying the Celestes, and I got, well, the balanced input for it, the cable for it. So that was the main reason. There was nothing wrong with this. This is awesome. It has, actually, this has a little bit more wattage at 32 ohms. This has 2.4, where the Jotunheim only has 2 watts at 32 ohms. So this was slightly a little bit more powerful, technically, but the Jotunheim just elevated the bass, the mids, and the treble. Now, it didn't do the mids as much as it did the bass and the treble. Now, don't get me wrong, it did not turn my headphones into a bass cannons, right? So you already know that I used the Focal Celestes on them, which those are my favorite headphones. I used my first generation Momentums, Sennheiser Momentums, with the stock cable and the heart cable. I also used the Campfire Audio Andromeda S. I used these Bose Sports, and then I used the, believe it or not, I have an old set of Monster Intunes. It just took those headphones and elevated it to another level. That's why I said it basically went from a naturally aspirated car to a turbo. Now, when I went from single-ended to balanced, that was a whole nother world. That just it upped to 1,000. If you're a gamer, you just leveled up 1,000. Basically, is what you did. It went from a single turbo to a twin turbo. You are now, or a quad turbo. You are now driving a Bugatti Veyron. I was so impressed with single-ended, the difference between single-ended and XLR. Now, I used that when I was a musician, so I'm so used to hearing it with single-ended through my guitar, and then XLRs out to everything else, to microphones and stuff like that. But when it came to headphones, I was blown away by this. And it is definitely well worth the money if you have a headphones or planning on getting headphones with balanced output. It is definitely well worth the money. If you plan on staying in the single-ended game, I would just stick with this Heresy. I wouldn't even upgrade to the Magnus, because, you know, in a way they almost kind of sound the same. So again, there's nothing wrong with this. It just didn't have the balance outputs, and I wanted to go balance output. That was the only reason why. I stayed in the Schiit family because I'm a huge fan and believer of synergy. Right? I'm pretty sure there's other headphone amps out there, but for the price of, you know, the $400, because again, I didn't get the DAC in it because I used my own DACs, and I got another DAC with it. It was awesome. Very pure, very clean. Needed to be warm when it needed to be warm. So this was and is an amazing headphone. It has, you know, and think about this. Yes, single-ended, it only has 2 watts per channel at 32 ohms. But when it comes to the balance output at 32 ohms, it's 6 watts per channel. That is an astronomical amount of wattage to drive headphones. Oh, and I also tested my Bose Companion 2 computer speakers. Same thing. But 6 watts per channel at 32 ohms, that is huge. That's all the power you're ever going to need. You know, this, I'm not saying this is underpowered, but it was still single-ended. Single-ended does not compare to balanced outputs. And just to give you some context with that, yes, I was using the single-ended from the stock cable, but I also tried out a couple other different cables. I have a couple cables with my Campfire Audio. And still, this was great, but nothing beats that XLR balanced output and that Jotunheim 2. If you plan on going to balanced outputs, I would highly recommend the Jotunheim. Again, I will tell you this, just like most shit products, it can come across as V-shaped, where treble, mid, bass. That's what V shape means. Um, it can sound like that, but it's not. And the reason why I say that is because it does boost the mids a little bit. It just boosts the treble and the bass a whole lot more. But that's also why we have EQs for this. Um, so now I'm gonna go into that. There's not much difference between the EQs. So if I'm really um, talking about EQs, um, I went from the four, the Loki to the Lokius. Now I got six bands. Only one band shares the same band with the Lokius. So I thought about saying, okay, well, I got three other bands here, right? Why don't I just use this with the Lokius? Well, first off, this, you know, my OCD kicks in because I ordered the black in the Loki and I ordered the silver in the Lokius. And so my OCD is going to kick in and say no. But really, the reason why I didn't is because I would have to run RCA in, RCA out into now my XLR balanced outputs. And that you're just getting into, you're asking for trouble in those cases. So it's just way too much to do. But the Lokius was awesome. Using it with iTunes, and yeah, I know iTunes has a EQ with it, but it doesn't have all the EQ that the Lokius has. So what I ended up doing with that was using both. And now I went from I think a 10 band till now like a 16 band, if I remember correctly. Hold on, let me pause this for a second. Okay. So I pulled up the Equalizer for iTunes. So I got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 10 bands with that one. And I have the 6. So technically I have 16 bands. However, the EQ for the iTunes has 32, 64, 125, 250, 500, 1K, 2K, 4K, 8K, and 16K. Now, the Lokius has 20K, 120, 400, 2K, 6K, and 16. So there's a couple there's a couple holdover. Obviously, you got the 16K, you have the 2K, right? And that's it. So you only have two. So technically, since we already have two, it's not a 16 band. It's actually a 14 band EQ now when I'm using this with iTunes. And it's awesome. And one of the reasons why, and I'm going to make a video on why you should be using EQ. I don't care what you fake audio files, whatever you want to call yourselves, or why you shouldn't do it. You want to hear it in its purest form. That's BS. I have a video coming out with that pretty soon. But the reason why I like using EQ is for a couple of reasons. Some of the older stuff that wasn't recorded very well, even newer stuff today, doesn't mean it's recorded well. You have engineers that are really good at their job, and then you have musical engineers that are just really bad at their job. And then it's also the technology at the time. I was a musician, semi-pro, not professional musician, but I was in a bunch of bands and I did a lot of shows and recorded some stuff too. So I know the engineering process, but talking to a couple of buddies of mine who are actual music engineers, a lot of the bands and singers and stuff, they don't care what it really sounds like. They just want the music out so they can go on tour and just start selling and promoting the album. And that's really what they want. And they usually just leave it up to the engineer. But again, good engineers, bad engineers. But anyway, so you can um, yes, you can overcompensate, but you can overcome some of the bad recording qualities. For instance, Anthrax, Gung Ho is one of my favorite songs. With this EQ and the iTunes EQ, I can make it sound a little bit better because it was recorded in the early 80s. And, they were just starting out, so they didn't have a lot of money, and the record company wasn't willing to sink a lot of money into it to make it sound like a really good album, recording quality wise. But I can make that song a little bit better to listen to. And then there are songs where people just use way too much bass or way too much treble. Female vocals can be on the higher side. And when they hit some of those higher notes, you can turn that down and make it more a palatable listen. It's basically what it comes down to. But I also got it because I listen to Tidal a lot, and Tidal doesn't have an EQ, and I don't like that. You know, I don't flood my inbox with a whole bunch of you listen to the music is pure. That's BS. wait for the video to come out about audiophiles. It's pure BS. That's not pure. So stop. Don't flood my comment section with that. You're wrong. You're wrong, right? The whole point of an EQ is to make that, to boost signals that aren't there up so you can hear them, because we all hear things differently, right? So some people may not hear bass as much, right? So if you want to hear that, and because your ears just don't hear it as much, now you can hear what it sounds like, right? It's to help adjust for our ears, which aren't perfect. When you hit that E note, that frequency of 440, that's pure, right there off the bat. That's a pure sound. However, the more things that it goes through during the recording process and the playback process, the more it gets muffled, right? So you can overcome that with an EQ. Just a short little glimpse of that. But with the Jotunheim and the Lokius, very, 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 very enjoyable listen. Again, the Jotunheim isn't a bass monster. It has enough to make you like it. I am under the assumption, I think the people at Schiit Audio listen to rock and metal a lot, because all of their products that I have really, really, really enhance rock and metal music. And don't get me wrong, I listen to a bunch of different genres. I listen to big band. I listen to doo-wop. I listen to 70s and 80s R&B, because that's the only R&B that matters. Same thing, I listen to 80s rap, because that's the only rap that matters is 80s rap. But I listen to a whole bunch of metal. I listen to a whole bunch of rock, a lot of classical, a lot of acoustic stuff. Probably one of my favorite acoustic songs, I guess, acoustic songs would be The Weight by the band. Really good. And a lot of this enhances that. It makes it. And, I listen to, forgive me, Kiss's Unplug album. For some strange reason, I love that album. I was working at a record store when that album came out, so I heard it all the time. I just love that album. Not a big, huge Kiss fan, but, songs like Domino, Coming Home, Beth, what was the other one that was really good? Come On and Love Me. It was awesome. It was almost like I was there. Now, some of the dacs had something to do with that as well too, but it boosted where it needed to be boosted. So definitely highly recommend those. The Jotunheim 2, awesome. You saw earlier that I was using the world's best XLRs. I didn't go break the bank and get, Kimber cable or Audio Quest. I just use regular world's best cables. And I really like those cables, and if you've seen any of my other videos, I'm an Audio Quest type of guy. But I just don't justify spending that much when I only need, 6 inches to 1.5 feet. So I just didn't want to buy that unless I could find them on clearance, then, or not YouTube, but eBay. Then yeah, maybe I'll try it. But the world's best cables were just fine, awesome with the new Trek, and I use a Canary, whatever you want to call it, however you call it, I don't know. Awesome. Definitely recommend it.